Hi, it's Michael Ogechi Abbey with Enterprise Express Tax Service again today. Today is a little different, and here's why. I'm actually talking about how to get started as a tax preparer. And, many tax professionals don't really like to go down this route for many reasons, but I just had the feeling today that it would be nice to talk about how to start, what it takes, what's required. And from my perspective, I think it will give the average person who has their taxes prepared a better idea of what tax professionals have to do to be able to give you the best service. If nothing else that you can take away from this. And who knows if there's a good enough reception, I may even do like a series and maybe write a book. You never know. But anyway, so let's get started. How do you get started in taxes? Well, let me give you a brief background of how I got started. I've been in the tax preparation industry for over 20 years. Excuse me. And I started out initially because I had a background in finance and marketing. So I was working for a company, almost like an H&R Block, sort of like, but more on the marketing side of things. But then I kept getting drawn into the taxation part, the numbers. And so I said, you know what, maybe I want to know this a little bit more. And so I did a course at the time with H&R Block, which was a tax preparation course. Lasted for maybe like a month and a half, 2 months. But it was very good because this was done at a time when you learned. H&R Block at that time taught you how to learn taxes with by paper. Okay. And so you didn't use software. You learned by hand how to do the numbers. You also learned how to know the 1040, the form 1040, pretty much off the bat. I won't say you memorized it, but you got to know it really, really well. They made you go through the 1040, like consistently. So you got to know where every number went and how every number was generated from. And that was excellent. And learning how to do taxes, manually as well was a real asset too. And so after that, my mother-in-law happened to be a tax professional, an accountant. And so I did some time with her, learning from her as well, before starting out on my own. And then somewhere in between, I got offered an opportunity, a job to work with the Comptroller of Maryland. Now, of course, working with the Comptroller of Maryland, that's the state's version of the IRS, I couldn't really do taxes, but I was still in the industry, albeit on a different side of the industry. I was now on the government side, the administration side, which gave me an idea of how things were done from that end as well. So that was very educational. Now, fast forward many years later, working with the controller's office through different sections. I worked with the electronic filing, returns processing, and from the education side as well. I was, in charge of training. And then I left the controller's office, the state's employee, and then started out on my own. And that's what I've been doing for a number of years now. What that has done is it's taught me how tax preparation, running your own business, you're starting it up, you're building your client base. From that end, I've learned a lot about marketing and building a customer base. All right. Being with the state of Maryland gave me an idea how things are done from the government side of things. And then being on my own as well has taught me what the do's, the don'ts, the ifs, the nots of how to be a good professional tax preparer. And I've made mistakes, which I've learned from. And I would like for anyone who's getting into this industry to not make the same mistakes. So, how do you get started? Well, for a long time, the tax professional industry, tax preparation industry, was really unregulated. There were no strict regulations. And we had a scenario where pretty much anyone was able to come into the industry. start off and start doing taxes from a room in their basement, or whatever. That went on for a while. However, over time, what's happened is the IRS has seen the need to tighten up, and so most states now will require you to be licensed as a tax professional, which is the best thing that's ever happened. If you think that most finance professionals need to be licensed, if you sell stocks, for instance, you need to have, or you sell insurance, you need to have your Series 6, 7, and maybe even 65. But that was not the case in the tax industry. So that's changed. All right. Most states now require you to be licensed. In the state of Maryland, which is where I am, you have to pass an exam, a competency exam, that pretty much determines how well or how well you can do, or your knowledge about taxes in general. All right. So then once you pass the exam, you now have to get an electronic filing, uh, like a kind of like a PIN number from the IRS, and that's pretty simple. But the first time you're doing that, you will go through a background check to make sure that you're not a criminal who's trying to get into the tax industry to do people's taxes. All right. And then once you do that, the IRS has different programs through which you can self qualify. At one point, the IRS had started a program that required you to pass that exam in order to do taxes, but there was a lot of blowback through the court system, and so the IRS ended up scrapping that. Now, what the IRS has is a system where you self educate, you self qualify, right? And then that gives you, I guess, a body of knowledge which can be advertised. The IRS has a website that shows what a level of qualification that you have. You could be an enrolled agent, which is the IRS's qualification. You could be a CPA, which is, the standard. I guess you could call it the gold standard, certified public accountant. And you could be an attorney, a lawyer also can qualify to be a tax professional as well. Of course, you have lawyers who are, tax professionals in their own field. So there are different ways. The IRS also has another program that I find quite interesting. It's called the Annual Filing Season Provider, AFSP. This requires you to take certain number of credits, education credits, which will qualify you to be an annual. The key word here is annual, because you have to take those education credits and pass them every year in order to be certified as an annual filing season provider. This is actually a good one because it gives the tax professional the authority to represent you for the tax year or tax years that they prepared those taxes for. So you're not left in the dark. If that tax professional is certified as an annual filing season provider, if there are any issues with that tax for that year in question, they can call the IRS, they can speak on your behalf, they can, be your, your representative, which is a good thing. So at a minimum, you probably want to make sure that your tax professional is an annual filing season provider. All right. Once again, remember that this is not a legal requirement. All right. So in Maryland, for instance, as long as a person has taken the state exam, they can still do taxes. So it's now up to you to determine what additional certifications, qualifications that you would want your tax professional to have. All right. So that's the annual filing season provider. The enrolled agent is one that is very close to the CPA in the sense that it is the Internal Revenue Service's internal, well, not internal, but it's their qualification. It's their standard for which they have given a very high level of authorization with which a tax professional can earn the enrolled agent designation. It's three-part exams that need to be taken: individual, business, and general. And it's quite it's not it's, these are not easy exams; they're quite difficult. But the good thing is that an enrolled agent does have a certain base knowledge that they have to have earned in order to represent you. The good thing with an enrolled agent is they can represent you once you sign the power of attorney. They can represent you through most tax years. They don't necessarily have to have done your tax return, but they do have that designated ability to represent you through most of your tax dealings if that's what you require. So an enrolled agent designation is a very good one. If you're coming into the industry, your goal should be to get to a point where you are an EA, you're a designated enrolled agent. If you can make it to a CPA, fantastic. But an enrolled agent does give you a certain leeway of authorization to do your work truly as a professional. And so most of us as tax professionals, we our aim is to get to where we have the enrolled agent. All right. Now, let's talk about how to build a tax business. This is the most important part and is the most difficult part. Remember, it's a business. You're going after clients. You're going after people whose their finances are very important to them. Taxes, as we all know, is something that everyone has to comply with. All right. And so when you're building the business, you've got to take it seriously. You got to know the demographic of clients that you're going after. You have to know how to market to that demographic so that they can bring their business to you. A lot of times you're either going after new clients who never had a tax professional, or you're going after people who do have a tax professional who are not quite satisfied with them and want to use somebody else. So the area of marketing is an area that I'm probably going to have to dedicate a different episode to, because there's a lot that goes into it. And when I talk about it, I'm going to talk about the lessons I've learned, the mistakes I made, and how best to build your client base. In my experience, taking it slowly, I think, is the best thing. And let me explain this, because I know we all want to build a business and build it fast and quick. However, remember, taxes is a relationship business. All right, people want to know that whoever they're talking about in terms of their personal finances is someone that they can trust and someone who's capable. And so that takes time. But it's worth it, because once people trust you, they will be very happy to, refer you to others, family members, friends, colleagues, so on and so. And that really is the best way that you're going to build your business. You can do as much advertising as you want, which is great. That's good. That could be a source of business for you. But referrals, personal referrals, recommendations are still going to be your number one way of building a core business of clients that stay with you, of a loyal client base. One thing I found out as I was building my business is that over the years, you find a lot of people who come one year, they'll go to someone else the next year. All right. And those are transitory clients, and they're okay, but they're not going to form the bedrock of your business. You really want to be in a situation where, one family is referring you to other family members and other family members because they trust you and they're not going anywhere. All right. And if they do go somewhere else, it's just because, it used to be in our business that if people were moving from one state to another, then they were going to another tax professional. Well, that's changed. In my office, we can do taxes in any state. In all 50 states, we can do those taxes. And so even if you move to Alaska, I can still do your taxes, All right. So I'm going to close with this just for today. And then I'll, like I said, there's going to be more in this series. You want to get as educated as you can about the industry, all right? You want to know as much as you can. So if you're thinking about getting into tax preparation, um, the first thing I want you to do is download a 1040 form, and just go through it. Just read through it like as if you're reading a book, and you want to do that. For whatever state that you reside in, you want to download the state form. In Maryland, it's called the 502, 505. Download that. There's also a booklet, IRS booklet that you can download. I'll remember the name. But that booklet comes out every year, and it gives you an idea of all the different things that the updates to the IRS for that tax year. Same thing with the state as well. So you want to download those booklets and just go through them and read them and understand. Also, you want to be aware of all the tax updates in your state and on the federal side as well, and how those impact the current year taxes. All right. So being educated and being aware of what's going on and in the finance world is extremely important, because you want to be able to interpret that when you're explaining certain situations to your clients. You have to be knowledgeable about things going on. You don't want your client to come in and be more knowledgeable than you about current financial things that could impact taxes. All right. And so you have to stay on top of things as well. Lastly, continuing education is extremely important. I do an average of maybe 40, 50 hours every year. And that's above what's mandated, because I just, like to be, I like to know that I am learning and continuously learning. And that should be your goal if you're someone who's coming into the industry to start a tax preparation business. All right. So that's it for today. I think I covered more ground than I even wanted to, because I'm looking at my timer. It says 17 minutes. That's quite a bit. In my other life, I'm an educator, so maybe I went too much in, educating. But I think this is good, and hopefully will help someone who's thinking about getting into the tax preparation business. Once again, my name is Michael Ogechi Abbey. If you liked this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to my channel. There's a lot more informative things that are coming down the pike. A few changes to our business as well. We're going to be offering a few more products. So, stay tuned. Michael Ogechi Abbey. Bye.